I'm just going to post this to you guys short and sweet. Right here, we have all 15 of our submissions. Starting us off, we have a hopeless dearth of inspiration by Mons. This submission sports itself a whole bunch of projectiles. We've got a whole bunch of missiles, we've got a whole bunch of rockets, and a lot of torpedo launchers in a very narrow burst at the front of the ship. For point defense, we have 4 burst lasers. We have some turning thrust, and thrust elsewhere seems to be pretty even up. This ship has 366 max acceleration. I'm not sure if that figure's entirely correct, but it does imply that this is actually a slower ship that is meant to tear through an opponent that charges it. It's gonna be fun. It's a nice, cute little ship with these fun little triangles here to help against splash hits. Other than that, it's somewhat unstacked, which is kind of a theme this tournament that I'm really here for. Next up, we have Battle Cruiser, which we're calling it DRL sometimes for short. Uh, this ship is again semi-unstacked. There is some stacking present here, not a whole lot overall. And it's mostly just for like thrusters. The aesthetics are very strong with this ship. I like it a lot. It reminds me of kind of a Star Trek ship, and that's very loosely. It was based off of another IP that stole from Star Trek, but it looks like we have even more missiles and perhaps, yeah, no, just a whole bunch of missiles. Right here in the front, we have an antimatter cannon for our spinal mount, very thematic, and a whole lot of shields. This submission goes 369 forward. It has 775 blocks and is exactly 4 KP, which is interesting. Most of the health seems to be kind of concentrated in this frontal area. There are these aesthetically pleasing pods that are probably going to mostly be for splash hits when the tournament actually starts. But other than that, I mean, this is a wonderful submission with fun little plasma cannons to boot. Next up, we have Cranked by Sumplecrum. If you can even see in this thing, we have 2 Tinkrel guns. One is notably longer than the other. There was some speculation for when I did this live in the Discord chat as to what these 2 guns could do. The consensus seemed to be that this was a get me away from whatever is way too close gun, and this was the main gun. It'll remain to be seen if that's the case. It's very hard to tell with this very stacked interior. We also have some defense lasers that are going to be very important for this little Tinkrel because there seem to be a lot of projectiles flowing around with these previous 2 submissions. Other than that, it has a max acceleration of 1,200, no, 1,028 in the forward direction and a 10 radian turn radius in both directions. It's a very small ship with only 370 blocks, and it's almost 4 KP at 39975. Next up, we have Plague of the Gods by Daz. This one has some fun little eyes. You can see them at the front here with their little defense station lasers. It's like a spider almost. We have a whole bunch of scatter guns for point defense. Yes, this is a farmer submission, and yes, it's very cool. We have a whole lot of forwards thrust that gives us a max acceleration of 471. We have a whole bunch of missiles. We've got Sparrows in here, and we've got HM1s over there. We have a few scattered station defense lasers to help with the scatter guns for point defense. And overall, it seems like a very fun looking submission. I love the colors. Next up, we have Bill by Debris. This is a venerable one. This was made for potential 40kp DRRT, but was submitted to Warlords instead. And its main armament is a whole bunch of plasma cannons and an antimatter cannon, the classic Debris combo. It sports some blast pulsers for point defense and has Debris's classic thruster arrangement for optimum performance. It has a spaced armor design with a shield generator in the center to protect all the squishy bits just in case. And overall, it's probably going to be another classic Debris skirmisher. We're going to see how it goes, though. It may behave differently. It has a max acceleration of 624 with a 4.9 turn radius. This is a snappy ship. Moving on to a less snappy ship, we have our first really big tanky ship. We have Gutter Guard by Duke Slayer. This bad boy is a B, surprisingly, and its quantum doom beams are angled such that they hit in almost every direction. These forward facing ones fire out like that. These inward facing ones fire right in the center. And to top it all off, just a little bit forward, there are these extra doom beams that fire out to about here. That's on both sides, so any ship, like for example mine, that gets within, oh, I don't know, about yay range is cooked. It will be cooked very quickly. Least of which because of these shard launchers right here. And don't think you can burrow away from the doom beams. There's more. This is a forward-facing ship for the most part. It has a supposed max acceleration of 182.6, but I made a ruling very early on that if a ship practically, like in the arena, goes faster than that, then it's okay to not have reassembly say that that's the acceleration, because realistically speaking, that's not the case. Speaking of things that I did, I made this. This is my humble submission to Warlords. This is a slightly outdated design. I'm working on finding the proper fleet file for it, and at the end of this video I will give you a brief showcase of it to make up for that. But this is an older version of Jaghun Noyat, and this right here is our AI trigger with our smallest scale Doom Beam. There are some medium scales in the actual submission that I will be using that kind of are out here and are meant to pretty much be the execute sticks, is what I call them. They kill any ships that are damaged enough that they can't really fend for themselves. And that's a similar role to what the shard launchers fill. The way this ship works is it rushes immediately up to an opposing ship, fires its doom beams until this AI trigger is popped, and then it rushes away to the other side of the arena. That max acceleration, much similar to the previous B submission, is just flat out wrong. This is a very, very, very fast ship, especially in the rearwards direction. When it isn't actively cooking you with its doom beams, it is launching drones, 25 of them. Several of them anchor, and of all shapes and sizes. The actual version of this ship uses every single B weapon there is, including all of their point defense weapons, so this ship is well equipped to deal with most threats. We'll see how it performs in the arena. I'm proud of it, but that's enough about me. Let's talk about Munin. Mini Munin, to be exact. There are so many Gauss beams in here, and I don't know where they all fit. There are also some flurry missiles, because everyone needs a little firecracker on their ship. And other than that, it's just a big, tiny. It's not even a big brick of armor. It's a tiny little brick of armor that behaves exactly like you think a Munin should. Coming to tormented attorney host near you. Seriously though, it's really incredible how prolific Munin can be, how adaptable it is. And I can't wait to see how this one does in my tourney. I'm imagining with all of these Gauss beams, it's just gonna fry some poor ship that can't get away in time, alive. Um, Next up, we have Drum by Exterp. this is a campaign ship, which there are a few of those in this tournament, that is entirely unstacked, which is honestly really impressive. It sports some plasma cannons and drones for its main armament. It's got a few railguns on it for those long range engagements, and plenty of point defense, which is going to be very useful in this tournament. In the form of not just lasers, but it also has a few autocannons here at the front, and that is going to help it so much against, a few submissions. Next up, we have Owl Feather's submission. Owl Feathers has Black Arrow, which this thing is this thing is insane. How it doesn't corrupt is anyone's guess. We have a tiny little blast pulsar in there, and we have a whole bunch of torpedo launchers with an antimatter cannon. I imagine this ship is just going to walk up to the nearest ship that it can find, shoot an antimatter at it, along with a whole bunch of torpedoes. Those are going to just blast away anything that they touch, and it's going to be hilarious watching this thing fight. Speaking of well-designed ships, we have MGW, infamous MGW, with another one of his famous designs. We have a whole bunch of blast pulsars for point defense, which that is probably going to come in handy. Hopefully it's enough. These defense cannons may help augment that, but this stacked armor will be completely ignored by the splash that, so far at least, is very prevalent in the tournament. But speaking of splash, we have plasma mortars. Yep, that's right, this is a Terran with proton swords in the front to boot. This ship right here is going to melt anything that gets within, about that radius, if it is slowed down enough. To help with that, we have a few Terran manipulators, and curiously, we have a very unique thruster arrangement. There are a few turning thrusters at this front stack here, but the vast majority of the thrusters on this ship only push in one specific direction, probably to get the ship to kind of make quick, snappy turns. That'll help these mines fan out properly. I'm not quite sure what the intent of the missile launcher and drone is back here. Probably some form of AI targeting shenanigans, but there's only one way to find out. With that, we move on to our next submission, Subutai the Executioner, which was very graciously submitted by Lucifer, and I gotta say, I love this ship. I I love how it takes classic Mongolian architecture as inspiration for its design. The color scheme is very cool. And inside here we have a whole bunch of Bolsheviks. That's right. This is another farmer submission. And we have some HM1s to boot. Not a lot of point defense, curiously enough. I'm a little worried about that, but those Bolsheviks will really hurt, especially because this particular ship has an acceleration of 740. It is very, very fast. Just for reference, MGW's ship has a max acceleration of exactly 300. Owl Feathers has 629, respectable, but still not quite at Subutai's level. And Drom has a max acceleration of about 400. Munin might come the closest with its acceleration of 624, but I'm not sure it'll be able to get away from just all these Bolsheviks. And the HM1s are probably going to make the AI turn into dodge mode, regardless if it has point defense or not, which will make dodging the actual Bolsheviks that much harder. Next up, we're going to move to Joyus's Stiletto. This was submitted by Joyous18 and is a classic design. I was recently informed that the reason why it's so long like this is to perhaps get the AI to think that its weapons are in range even when it's not and fire at the incorrect time, missing the ship entirely. I'm a little interested in like how the thrust arrangement works, and I'm also interested in how effective the phasers are going to be for point defense since they're at the very back of the ship. But I will fully admit I don't build reds, so I am not the most qualified to be talking about this submission. Joyous, it it looks fun and I like it. Speaking of things that I like that are red and are fun, we have our first time competitor ships, Cromular and Warward Saber of Eurasia. Cromular is a very fun ship because if I zoom out here, this looks like a lotus flower. And going back to the tournament theme, uh, while Japan wasn't conquered by the Mongols, they certainly were harassed quite a bit. So I would consider this kind of flower pattern to be on theme, and something we noticed when I was looking at this with others. These kind of petals or branches, if you will, are not only connected to the center ring, but also to each other through these arrangements here in a truly masterful feat of engineering. We have a whole lot of anti-missile lasers, which is going to be very useful in this tournament. We have a healthy smattering of phasers for their splash damage, and a whole lot of Tempest for not only armor, but they also provide some much valued DPS on this ship. This ship has a max acceleration of 232. Joyous's red has a max acceleration of 526. That gives you the idea of the kind of reds that you'll be facing in this tournament. Hopefully you can outrun them, because if you won't, or if you don't, they won't hesitate to vaporize you about as fast as you can vaporize them. Last and certainly not least, we have Warward Saber of Eurasia by Pyramid Boy, which, sadly, this design has been extremely corrupted from its original state. I have given Pyramid Boy the opportunity to go ahead and resubmit the actual design. I'm going to go ahead and about now when I'm editing, I'm going to paste what this ship would look like. Uh, and that sums it up for all 15 of our ships. I hope if you're watching this that you have a fantastic day. Be sure to vote if you can on which ship you think fits the theme the best, and let me know which ships you think are going to be the deadliest in this tournament. I would love to hear your thoughts. This tournament is all about engagement, so if you can, drop me a DM telling me what ships you think are going to be deadly, what ships you're not, what ship you think is the prettiest, and last but not least, remember to have fun. If you are participating in this tournament, be sure to DM me your top 6 ships that you'd like to fight. You will end up fighting 4 of them. If, for whatever reason, I am unable to give you 4 ships that you wanted to fight, because a lot of people were asking to fight those ships, then I will go ahead and choose some ships for you based on your preferences. With that, I hope you have an awesome day. I'll see you guys once the challenging begins.